All right, good afternoon, Marine Corps Base, Hawaii. Today we're here with Colonel Bango, Commanding Officer of Headquarters and Service Battalion, Marfort PAC, and Commander Martins, Commanding Officer of Helicopter Maritime Strike Squadron 37. Good afternoon, gentlemen. Thank you so much for being here.
Good afternoon.
We think this is a great opportunity and a great forum to kind of touch on some of the more brought up topics within our communication channels. Thanks for your time and participation this afternoon. So we'll get started with the first question. Over to Colonel Bango. As the Commanding Officer for Headquarters and Service Battalion at Marfort PAC, how has COVID-19 affected both your personnel and readiness?
Right. Well, Rob, thanks first and foremost, and thank you for the opportunity. Thanks to Marine Corps Base Hawaii Comstrat to give us this opportunity to address the Facebook family and the Facebook community here, which is so important in Hawaii, to answer some questions, alleviate concerns, and just build the trust and confidence with our dependents and civilian employees. But to answer the question, how has it affected our personnel and our readiness? At the headquarters at Marfort PAC, we've tried to maintain focus on a couple of things. So first and foremost, a ready force, that is forces that are ready to fight tonight, whatever the nation calls, and then the health of the force. And so those priorities we try to maintain on an even keel, but of course we're always going to try to be that force in readiness. With that said, in terms of it affecting our personnel, I would say that the impact has been really negligible, maybe non-existent to personnel. I'm always amazed whenever we're met with crisis or contingency as Marines and sailors that we react pretty quickly and adapt pretty quickly. So in terms of the effect on our personnel, people have adapted to the changes in pattern of life. And so I've been really, really proud of that. In terms of how it's impacted the readiness, so the headquarters at Marfort PAC, particularly the Headquarters and Service Battalion, has a little bit of a different mission. We don't have a unit mission essential task list like the commander here, so we don't train and organize as a unit. I train and organize and am more concerned with the individual readiness of Marines and sailors, as these individuals will go out as individual augments during contingency and crisis. So again, in terms of individual readiness of the Marines and sailors at Headquarters and Service Battalion, very low impacts. Despite all the restrictions, we've still been able to maintain pretty high standards of individual medical readiness and personnel readiness. PFT, swim qual notwithstanding, it's had a relatively low impact. So we've been pretty successful in terms of maintaining kind of a high state of readiness for our people and maintaining their confidence.
Thank you, sir. All right, sir, for our Navy brethren, as the commanding officer of HSM 37, similar question, how has COVID-19 affected your personnel and readiness on your side?
Thank you. I'd like to echo really the sincere thanks of being a part of this for our part of the Marine Corps Navy team here on base, and being able to come and address our folks who are part of the Ohana on Marine Corps Base Hawaii, and the welcoming place that we have here so far as our Easy Rider families call this home and work. So really what I've seen as a skipper of 37 is the resiliency of our families, the resiliency of our sailors who come to work every day, dealing with the crisis, dealing with loved ones far away and home. So a little bit of the uncertainty as we've dealt with it, but I think the key to that resiliency that our Easy Rider Ohana has showed is the communication. The communication from the base, Comstrat, the Facebook engagements, the messages going out across the base, and then even our lieutenant commands taking those messages directly to the families, so that no matter what, the Easy Rider Ohana feels and is informed about what's going on base, off base in the state of Hawaii. And that's a challenge as a commander to communicate to everybody, but the tight-knit sailors and Marines community that we have here really makes it easy for us as a command to be on the same page as everybody, to understand what are the CDC guidelines, what are the implementation measures that we're doing here on base to keep our sailors, our Marines, and their families healthy and safe. So using our ombudsman and reaching out on a weekly basis has been key to really keeping families informed and letting everybody know that we're still coming to work every day, but we're doing it in such a way to take care of our sailors and to make sure their families are taken care of as well.
Thanks, sir. All right, sir, back over to you, Colonel Bango. Have you seen any significant changes in your mission? More specifically, if you can kind of give us some insight on whether or not this pandemic has altered your mission accomplishment for the future.
Right. So, again, I would say that in terms of altering the mission hasn't changed at headquarters and Service Battalion for Mark PAC. We'll continue to provide admin logistical services for the headquarters at Mark PAC. Going into the future, I think the mission is going to stay the same. We're not going to alter that. I think what you're going to see is you'll see how we execute maybe the mission and the things that we prioritize and focus on while we're executing the mission. For example, probably prior to this pandemic event, we were a little less concerned about personal protective equipment, social distancing. We didn't think of those things in terms of, that being part of how we're going to execute the mission. Going forward, we're certainly going to think about that because my unit provides such a heavy admin support. We do have the benefit of being able to telework and still accomplish the mission. So the way we execute might be 80% of the workforce is telecommuting from a barracks room or from your home by sitting in an office space with a bunch of Marines and sailors. So that would probably be maybe the more significant change in the way we execute. But I don't think the mission is going to change. It'll stay the same.
Thank you. All right, Commander Martins. In terms of operations at HSM 37, how has COVID affected those operations? And again, similar in vein, how will it be affected moving forward?
Sure. First and foremost, our priority is the health of our Easy Riders and taking care of their families because they're absolutely essential to what we do every day. Fixing aircraft here on K-Bay, deploying detachments. Without a healthy force, we can't do our mission. And so the steps that we've taken and the guidelines we've received from the Navy and the CDC have really helped us mitigate the risk of COVID-19 in the squadron, such that we've adapted our schedule, we've adapted how we bring people to work, screening processes so that folks are coming and getting screened before they come to work. They're wearing PPE at work, and really that sets us up so that we can continue flying. We continue training pilots, we can continue fixing aircraft, and continue deploying detachments. So throughout this, the pandemic, we've stood SAR duty in support of the U.S. Coast Guard so that every weekend we have a ready SAR crew standing by to conduct search and rescue operations if needed. We've deployed 2 DETs so far. We're getting ready to deploy another detachment. So really the resiliency of our sailors, the support of their families, and the adaptability and flexibility of our force has enabled us to keep doing our mission. We're just doing it a little bit differently now.
Thank you. Okay, so back over to Colonel Bango. Moving forward, what do you foresee are some of the future challenges?
Right. So I would be remiss if I didn't recognize at least one individual, and I got to recognize Colonel Inez throughout this whole pandemic reaction. So Colonel Inez has been a calming voice in the COVID storm, and all of us collectively as tenant commanders have looked to him for that guidance, and he's done a wonderful job, and he's done a wonderful job communicating. I've never actually met Commander Martins, but if you listen to the answer to his last question, we are executing the mission in much the same way in terms of rotating forces in and out, protecting the individuals that are executing the mission, and that's because of Colonel Inez. So hats off to Boogie, and many thanks to him. Going forward, I think the challenges we're going to see are, well, people are going to ask the question, when is this going to be over? And that's on everyone's mind. When is it going to be over? It may not ever be over in terms of the way that we move forward in terms of pattern of life and what a lot of people like to call the new normal. So we're probably going to continue to wash hands before we walk into a room and use the hand sanitizer, and maybe mask up, and probably continue to telework, and we'll continue to rotate the force in and out to keep people separated and social distance. Those will be things that will be hard to maintain. Just like with any kind of strict and stringent standard, and whenever it changes people's pattern of life, it makes them uncomfortable. You see this in combat. Even when you're under extreme duress and pressure and risk of life and limb, people will still do weird things to kind of benefit their personal comforts. So that's going to be a challenge going forward. We're just going to have to use tried and true methods of good discipline and training to get through that, but maintaining that high level of readiness and that high standard of distancing ourselves and using masks and washing our hands and covering our cough is something that will be with us probably forever.
Thank you, sir. All right, so you're in a unique position, Commander Martins. You guys have detachments that deploy from Pearl Harbor ships. How do you foresee those deployments changing?
Sure. Well, basically, the Navy has implemented some guidance to keep our sailors safe, to keep our sailors healthy. And right now, we actually have a debt that's sequestering, which means they are isolated from any other individuals, and they are preparing to embark a destroyer and go underway. So that process, we've gotten the support of the base. We're able to put them in rooms, keep them isolated, and make sure that before they get on the ship, they're not exhibiting any symptoms of COVID-19, and they'll be able to actually go out and execute the mission. So that's something that the Navy has traditionally done with fast cruising on board a ship. So a ship, basically, everybody gets on board the week before they go out, they exercise all the systems on the ship, and then the ship pulls out the next week. Well, now we're kind of doing that with the added precaution and safety measure of keeping people isolated so they don't display any symptoms of COVID-19, and then deploying that ship in such a way that we can ensure the health of that crew. And so we're following the guidance of the CDC, we're following the guidance of our Navy leadership to ensure that everybody we put on a ship and everybody we send out to sea to do that job that's absolutely required in our national interest, that we're doing it in a way that ensures the entire crew is healthy. And we expect that to continue until the CDC and the pandemic's over. But it gives us a way to come to work every day and continue to do the job that our nation calls us to do.
Thank you. Well, gentlemen, I think we've hit all the pertinent topics that are out there, and I just want to say thanks again for both your candidness, your answers, insight, and specifically your unique positions from both of you. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks to you, Rob, and thanks for this opportunity to kind of speak to our families, and thanks to Colonel Inez for providing this venue.